Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We are going to definitively solve the modern MacBook buyer's dilemma today. Because let's be honest, whether you're a student, a high-level developer, or a creative professional, navigating Apple's laptop lineup has become surprisingly complex lately. So today we're breaking down the hard data, the specs, and the real-world benchmarks to help you make the absolute smartest investment possible.
It is the exact question every single buyer faces when they see nearly identical base benchmark scores for machines with vastly different price tags, right? You walk into a store, you look at the M5 MacBook Air and the M5 MacBook Pro, and on paper, their single-core speeds are virtually indistinguishable, and yet the Pro costs substantially more. So, you have to ask yourself, where is that extra $1,000 actually going? To get you the answers you need, here's our roadmap. We'll cover the great MacBook dilemma, screens, ports, and portability, the truth about performance, real-world app performance, which MacBook fits you, and finally, peeking at the M6 future. So let's kick things off with Section 1, the great MacBook dilemma. Here is the craziest part about all of this. If you are just looking at raw, single-core numbers, the base M5 chips make these two completely different machines look deceptively similar. I mean, if you're just checking emails, writing documents, or browsing the web, the MacBook Air is going to feel just as snappy as the much bulkier MacBook Pro. The silicon efficiency here is just so incredibly good that everyday computing simply doesn't stress either system enough to reveal the true differences.
Moving right along to Section 2, screens, ports, and portability.
The visual difference between these two is just night and day. The Air gives you a beautiful but, pretty standard 60 Hz LCD panel. But the Pro, it completely steps it up with a liquid Retina XDR display using mini LED tech. That means you're getting 120 Hz ProMotion for incredibly smooth scrolling and an absolutely astonishing 1600 nits of peak HDR brightness. Seriously, this screen is arguably one of the biggest single reasons to justify that price jump, especially if your work involves any kind of visual medium. And then there's connectivity, which is another massive dividing line. While the Air gives you two very capable Thunderbolt 4 ports, the Pro transforms into a literal workstation. It officially lets you retire from the dongle life. You're getting three lightning-fast Thunderbolt 5 ports pushing 120 gigabits per second, a full-size HDMI 2.1 port, and an SDX card slot. Plus, depending on the exact chip you pick, the Pro can drive up to 3 external displays. It is an absolute powerhouse for a multi-monitor setup.
But of course, there is a physical trade-off for all that Pro-level hardware. The 13-inch Air weighs an incredibly light 2.7 pounds, compared to the 14-inch Pro's 3.5 pounds. That makes the Air the undisputed champion of portability. If your primary use case involves, say, carrying your laptop in a backpack across a massive college campus or traveling a lot, you are absolutely going to feel that near 1 pound difference by the end of the day.
Let's dig a little deeper in Section 3, the truth about performance.
Now we have to talk about thermal throttling. This is honestly the absolute crux of the entire Air versus Pro debate. Because the Air entirely lacks an internal fan, it has to rely purely on passive cooling. So if you push it too hard for too long, it literally has to hit the brakes and slow itself down just to protect the hardware from overheating.
It's kind of like a sprint versus a marathon. The Air sprints super hard for the first 2 minutes at around 25 watts. But then its fanless design forces a drastic drop down to just 9 watts just to survive the heat. The Pro, it just quietly spins up its internal fans and keeps cruising at maximum speed indefinitely. This right here is exactly where the Pro actually earns its name. Furthermore, the M5 Pro chip boasts a massive 307 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. To put that into perspective, that is double the bandwidth of the base M5 chip found in the Air. It allows the RAM to feed data to the processor at just blistering speeds, and that is absolutely vital if you're running intense local AI generation tools or compiling massive code bases.
Let's see what this looks like in practice with Section 4, Real-World App Performance.
For the developers out there, we know time is money. In an Xcode compilation test, the base M5 takes about 160 seconds, but the M5 Pro cuts that down to 104 seconds. That's roughly a third faster. Interestingly though, jumping all the way up to the vastly more expensive M5 Max only saves you another 8 seconds. So this perfectly illustrates why the M5 Pro is absolutely the clear sweet spot for software coding.
But the story completely shifts when we look at video. In a Final Cut Pro export test, the M5 and M5 Pro were actually somewhat close.
However, the M5 Max crushes the task in just 52 seconds. If you are a heavy video editor and you're exporting massive high-resolution projects with multiple streams, those extra dedicated media encoders and decoders inside the M5 Max chip are going to save you a ton of time every single day.
And in heavy 3D rendering, the performance scaling is just perfectly linear. The M5 takes 30 seconds, the Pro cuts that to about 19 seconds, and the Max just destroys it in 12 seconds. This shows you exactly why creative professionals working in 3D modeling and animation will gladly pay that massive premium for the Max chips. It immediately accelerates their workflow.
Okay, Section 5. Which MacBook fits you? Before you buy anything, you need to beware of the price trap. It is so easy to fall into. You might start configuring a MacBook Air online, adding a bit more RAM here, a slightly larger SSD there, and suddenly you are paying base model Pro money for a fanless machine. If you find yourself heavily upgrading an Air, you really need to pause and ask yourself if the Pro, with its vastly superior screen, all those ports, and the active cooling, is actually the much better value for your money. Let's just map your specific workflow directly to the right machine, completely cutting through the marketing noise. Mostly text or web-based? Get the Air. It's light, it's completely silent, it's perfect. Need sustained power and serious color accuracy? The 14-inch Pro is definitely your sweet spot. And if you're pushing heavy local AI models or dense 3D scenes, that 16-inch Max with a massive amount of RAM is genuinely your only true option.
It's also totally worth looking at this from a long-term investment angle. Because the Pro has robust active cooling and much higher starting hardware specifications, repair experts estimate it's going to comfortably last you a couple of years longer than the Air. We all know heat degrades electronics over time, right? So the Pro's ability to actually keep itself cool directly contributes to its longer projected lifespan.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, peeking at the M6 future.
Recent supply chain rumors indicate Apple is actually preparing a pretty major design shift. They are reportedly finally ditching the traditional single heat pipe design for a full vapor chamber cooling system in the upcoming M6 models. Guys, this is a massive leap forward in thermal management technology, the kind of thing that's usually reserved for the most extreme, bulky gaming laptops.
And why exactly are they doing this now? Well, because the latest internal components are running incredibly hot. The ultra-fast Gen 5 SSDs in the current Pro models can literally reach a toasty 100 degrees Celsius under heavy load. A vapor chamber, combined with highly efficient thermal paste, won't just stop processor throttling entirely, it's going to actively protect these critical internal components from extreme heat degradation over the years. So, let's bring it all together. With everything we've uncovered in this explainer today about raw performance, the very real dangers of that price trap, and the looming thermal upgrades right on the horizon, what is your next move going to be? Does the current M5 lineup completely solve your workflow bottlenecks today, or is the promise of that massive M6 redesign actually worth the wait?